Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for stopping by again. I'm going to share three basic stories with you. There are a number I could do. We've had a lot going on, and a lot of it's positive. Definitely so, but I'm not going to get involved in all of that. There's just too much. But anyhow, I'm going to take three stories that may be of interest to you. They're less noted, except for the third one, which is getting more widely noted and is one of these really ridiculous things that Panama has to put up with from time to time. So I'll get to it when I get to it. But the first one is something I mentioned before in earlier videos, but not for a while, and that is the arrival of Colombians to Panama as residents. Now, they're our next door neighbors, one of two, they're in Costa Rica. Way back in the days when the cartels were particularly bad, this is a long time ago, a couple decades, 2-3 decades, Panama really opens its door to Colombians to come in. And I mean, we do that for everybody, but we had quite a few back then. As a result, we've always had a strong and vibrant Colombian Panamanian community. And many of them are simply Panamanians. They were born here years ago. They're adults. And, they're just one more ethnic group that makes up the country. And one of the largest, if not the largest, actually. It depends on how you want to count things. Anyhow, here comes a graphic. Now, these are the residencies that have been awarded, not applied for, but actually awarded to Colombian citizens since 2010. And as you can see, it's pretty steady and pretty ordinary, very low. I follow the statistics for a number of countries every month. I have been for years. It's a lot of work, and it takes a huge Excel spreadsheet, I can assure you. But anyhow, the point is that I'm looking for something like this that happens from time to time. Nobody else does this, so it's not likely that you've ever seen anything like this. And if you do, well, they're probably picking it up from me, whatever. Here's the key. You can see, therefore, this blue columns really are the ordinary since 2010. And in 2022, there I go. I go, whoops. All right, what do we got going here? 2023, wow, just a stunning increase. You can't avoid it. You can't ignore it. It's right there. I started talking about it to people, and they said, oh, well, that's nice. And then in 24, pardon me, and then it hits a new high. I think, oh my gosh, look at that. Now, in last year, they sort of settled back, although that 10,000 mark there is a lot higher than it was in the first dozen and more years of this last couple of decades. So that's pretty impressive in and of itself. Now, what's doing this? What's causing this to happen? And Colombia has different politics, different history, different economy, different circumstances. They've had a couple million or so Venezuelan refugees, and that's one part of the equation. On the other hand, many of them just passed through on their way to the U.S. originally, not so much now, as you know, and then down to the southern part of Argentina and so on. Anyhow, we've had that, and they've had that problem. And they've also had a lot of difficulties with the cartels again, and that's been picking up recently. And so that may have a good bit to do with it. We don't know, because it started back in 22. And keep in mind that you start your application process and everything. You don't, unless it's an emergency, you don't go running around pushing it in 30 or 60 days. It takes time. So you see what's called a lagging indicator here. If you'd taken if you had a list of those when they applied only, then it would push those yellow bars up earlier. But you only get the ones that have actually been awarded minus anybody else. Also, I might add, it does not include children under 15 who typically do not get IDs of their own, because this is really for the sake of the ID or the cedula here. And they don't need one because it's primarily the cedula is meant for school reasons or work reasons or one thing or another. And it's sort of a rite of passage to get your cedula. Any event, what I'm saying fundamentally is that 3.5 years represents about 50,000 individual Colombians and their children, and that's not being very big and not contributing that many for children. It might be closer to 55 or even 60, but over 50,000 arriving, and it's hardly noticeable. When the Venezuelans arrived in numbers similar to this, everybody noticed it. I mean, it was all in the news. It was a big deal. What's going on here? And the answer really is that it's just not a big deal. I mean, we've had Colombians, they show up, and they have a large community. So let's face it, if you're going to be a resident, you got to reside somewhere, right? So they should be impacting the housing market. And I have no doubt but they are. And it's probably the middle level, which is the one most commonly looked at by expats coming in from other countries. And that's where the competition, you might say, is. Basically because wealthy Colombians have had homes here for a long time, many of them. And although some of these are successful business people who are not wealthy in the old sense of the term of wealth, but still well off, nonetheless, many will be, you might say, upper middle class and so on. So they can afford, in other words, to buy here. And they do, and some will move here. I assume others will remain in Colombia and come up only if they need to and look at it as an investment. There's a story behind every one of these, but it's obviously a lot of people who weren't doing it are now doing it, and that's the key. So I will give you an article from the New York Times on the circumstances there. It's not pretty. It's not very nice. It's one of the many problems that they have in Colombia. I want to make clear that this is not meant to insult anybody in Colombia. It's just a reality that everyone has to deal with at the moment. And we want to hope that it can be dealt with in the future. But and I will not tolerate any anti-Colombian or any political comments about Colombia. That's not the point. The only reason I mention politics in any country other than Panama is if they actually directly affect us, and nothing better than that than Colombia, which is next door to us, and we keep an eye on what's going on in Costa Rica. It's a very different country too. It's night and day in many ways to Panama. So you may find that surprising, but that's normal. We are different. So, and it's not better. It's a question of being different. And keep that in mind. Now, but Colombia happens to be the one right now that's showing these numbers. It's nothing I'm saying. It's not an opinion. It's numbers staring me right in the face. So that's just I'm sharing with you. And it's why we may have a stiffening or a hardening of the market in the middle level without it being apparent at first. We have a big inventory of those homes, and nobody keeps a good grip on the statistics. If they don't, we don't know if that's happening yet or not. And we do nothing to try to survey these people, find out who they are. The real estate sector here does nothing. They expect people to show up and buy their places. They just don't know how to do market research that's accurate and really useful. So that's it. And I just wanted to say that in because if it were to take off, it could definitely have an impact on market that would be felt significantly enough that it wouldn't be kept in the community. It would be widely known. Just in passing thought doesn't mean it's going to happen. Okay, number two. I'm bringing it along here. And Tocumen. Tocumen Airport is a critical element of our operation here, our logistical hub reputation. And everyone's familiar with the Canal Authority and so forth. I just had this article, I just tossed it up there. Tocumen is growing, and it's growing very rapidly. It's getting more and more, it's blowing away numbers and setting new records. Not just a matter of people, but freight. A great deal of freight passes through it too. So much of it is going on its way to somewhere else, but at the same token, they stay here, they stop here, they spend money here. And because we have a lower tax structure for people. A lot of folks, like Colombians, will stop here and buy gifts and what have you for a party, or I mean for something like Christmas and so on, or special sales that they have occasionally that's directed toward people like that, and they'll do so. So it's more of an important part of the infrastructure that is given credit for, and it's growing. And we will have our third terminal, which we'd expected already to be working on, but the COVID interfered. Now we're going to be adding 10 gates onto the second terminal. So you can read about that very short article, but it sort of gives you a flavor of what's going on there. And finally, the third one, that's the one that's particularly annoying. This is a lot of YouTube videos going out saying, oh my gosh, Mexico has a railroad across the southern Mexico. It's going to just destroy the Panama Canal. Oh, this is over. Oh my God, oh my God. Guys, they just started using it last year. It hasn't been a brilliant success. And the end of this last year, I think it was the 29th when it actually occurred. The 30th is when the report came in that you're going to be seeing something terrible happened. A train went right off the tracks and over a cliff, and one car dangling off the edge of that cliff, the other one leaning. I mean, it's at that time, they didn't know the full story. This is the first story coming out. But 14 people were killed and several dozen were injured. And there's a black box. I didn't know they had those, but they have the railroad and railroads. And so they have all the information. The train was operating at that time. And it was way over speed limit. For the curve it was trying to get through, and at other points, even on the straightaways, way too fast. This is dumb. And then they go in and they found out since then, well, let's just put it this way, the driver and a number of other people are been charged with manslaughter. Okay, it's not a pretty picture. A lot of the crew, or at least some of the crew, were not licensed to do what they do. There was just all sorts of bad things going on, and some questions about the construction, and maybe that was at fault and so on. So the president, Scheinbaum, who's done such a good job in so many areas, she just closed it down. She said, you're not running it until you assure us that we know exactly what happened and we're taking care of everything. Because they can't afford this sort of thing going on very often. And so it is, I checked pretty thoroughly in the last week, and I can't seem to find anything in terms of the railway restarting. In other words, it's been quiet for 2 months and not working, not happening, because they hadn't finished all the reports. That will happen some point. But meantime, you go into YouTube and you think, oh my gosh, it's operating, it's making, wow, big time competition. Guys, it's not competition. No, we're not losing sleep over it. Because, my friends, it runs through an area claimed by at least 2 cartels. They're active. If they have a problem with the government, what does it cost them to send a few guys out there, rip off maybe 10 meters, if necessary, of track, and walk away? And the next day, oh my God, let's hope they stop in time. Let's hope they gave them plenty of time to see it and to stop so no one gets hurt, for God's sakes. But you ain't going nowhere until that track gets repaired. They can do that every day for a month. I mean, it's a huge, long train, and there's no way you can protect it all the time everywhere, not at all. So I looked at it from the very beginning saying this is the wrong place to have a very vital rail passing for foreigners, for foreign trade, if you want to compete with the canal. We have the canal here. We have a railroad that runs along beside it. We have a pipeline that's being built to also run along the side, and so we can massively increase our liquefied gas movement, which has been very successful. We have a lot of stuff there. And the railroad, the pipeline, and everything, they're on the canal's own property right along beside the canal, and so they're protected, and there's no question there. And they're a lot shorter than what's being done over in Mexico. I understand the railroad's been sold to Maersk. I think that's final. If so, then Maersk is a big shipping outfit, and they would be lucky to be the ones to get it, because then they could use it or charge others for using it. If there is need to ever again have to use the trains for lifting some cargo and carrying it for some reason, low water or whatever. I mean, we learned a lot from this last experience, and everything is aimed toward taking care of the water problem, which isn't going to happen overnight, but also to take care in the event we have another water problem, that we're better able to deal with it successfully and make money, because that pipeline, that railroad don't depend on water in order to work. And it's not as if the canal goes dry, it just goes down, and then it reduces the number of passages. So what we're trying to do is to replace that in the case that we need it, or simply add to it to greatly expand our abilities, and then bring on this new reservoir eventually, 2-3 years down the road, and we'll see how things go. But I take, you see these things about Panama, and they seem so sure of themselves. This is like the one that was the canal across Nicaragua. Yeah, right, fine, in your dreams. Sorry, but Daniel Ortega, nobody trusts him. And elsewhere, there have been several different attempts and lots of talk about it. I think it's beyond its time now. I don't think that's going to happen because it's too darned expensive. But be that as it may, I wanted to share it with you and keep an eye out for stuff like that. That sounds really, really exciting. Like, oh, we should be terribly concerned. And you can always ask me, are you terribly concerned? I'll tell you if I am or I'm not. Good enough. Thank you so much for dropping by again. And I look forward to talking to you again, because I'm going to do a little bit more of this where I deal with specific issues as we move toward opening up the new channel. So good to talk to you today.